Chris Brown, Steve Tasker with you, and pleased to be joined now by NFL Network reporter James Palmer, who's the host of the NFL Report, which streams on Monday and Thursdays at 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time on the NFL channel, available on the NFL app, fast streaming platforms, and NFL.com/NFL channel. They got you on every platform imaginable, James. This is impressive.
Yeah. Listen, I'm not sure if anybody's watching, but it's not, any slight of us trying to put this thing every possible spot we can find. It's a podcast too, it's out there for everything. But it's been a blast. Steve Wyche is an awesome co-host. We have great guests on. It's been phenomenal.
And we're at week 10 of the season. We always have this saying around here that once the season kicks off, it rolls downhill. And even now we're week 10 and we got a lot of football to play. But man, oh man, we've got a lot to talk about so far as well. The Denver Broncos coming into Buffalo for the Monday night game. They seem to have righted the ship. Maybe a month ago, maybe they bottomed out with a loss to Miami, giving up 70 points. And then all of a sudden, they reset some things, and now they're playing a lot better.
The last 3 weeks, specifically, the biggest change has been what? It's the defense, right, guys? You mentioned the bottoming out. 70 points is an avalanche of points. That's going to skew any sort of rankings they have, honestly, when you look at it, if you're just looking at statistics for the season, putting them against other defenses. But since week 5, they've been the best red zone defense in all football. And they've really turned a corner. I had a long conversation on the NFL Report with safety Justin Simmons last week about what's happened with this group. And defense coordinator Vance Joseph, he told us, just kind of showed him that it's really just missed assignments, guys. It's just one little missed assignment here, somebody not working within the framework of the scheme over here, and how close they were. Because remember how talented this defense was a season ago, but it's a new defensive coordinator in Vance Joseph, just getting it some time to come and play together, getting some pass rushers back up front. Baron Browning, definitely a guy to keep an eye on up front, getting after the quarterback. His return off of IR helped, and having some healthy guys in the secondary. Defensively, turning the corner has been a big part of this. I don't think we had a lot of patience early with everything Sean Payton wanted to change, and they've kind of started playing with the formula we thought was going to be the Broncos formula. And I think last week was the first time, or 2 weeks ago, their last game, first time we really saw that. Run the football ad nauseum, kind of limit the amount of massive plays Russell Wilson has to make himself, play great special teams, which is what they're doing, and play solid defense. And that was kind of the recipe in that win over the Chiefs, and that's kind of what they were shooting for. It was really just 2 weeks ago the first time we saw it all put together.
Yeah, and as much as the defense has kind of rounded into form here, James, it seems like Coach Payton is pretty dead set on helping them with that ball control style, especially when going against an elite quarterback like Mahomes. It kind of leads us to think that approach is almost going to be identical this week against Josh, knowing what he can do if he has too many opportunities with the football.
Yeah, I would think it'd be almost identical. I mean, specifically on defense, too, some of the things they did up front to go after Mahomes and limit his ability to create and extend plays, which Josh is so good at doing that and making plays outside the pocket. It was one of the biggest things that they were able to do up front is, making sure you're disciplined with your lanes up front and making sure that you don't, let him get outside. You don't go too wide because both of them can go up the middle in some sense. But really, they thought they did a great job against Mahomes, containing him in that sense. And you want to do that against Josh Allen as well. But yeah, to the other side, it's run the football. And I think people were a little impatient in a sense. I think I had this conversation a couple of years ago with Brandon Beane. Nobody in the NFL is patient. It just doesn't exist in this league. And with as quickly as Javonte Williams, their running back, was coming back off of that massive knee injury a year ago, everybody just thought since he was playing, he'd be himself right away, right? And that's difficult to be an explosive back coming off the injury he had. It was remarkable that he was even ready to go by week 1. And now you've seen him kind of get some of that explosion back. He's a physical back. They had a rookie in, Jaleel McLaughlin that's just been phenomenal for them out of the backfield as well. So now they're running 3 backs and trying to keep guys like Josh Allen off the field.
And then you get to this point where they just had this nice outing against Kansas City as one of the top teams. And you look at the Bills, and everybody's been chasing Kansas City for 6 or 8 years now.
Yeah.
The Bills have managed to beat them in the regular season, but also the Bills this year became a little bit more like Kansas City in that they found this guy Dalton Kincaid, who up the last couple of weeks has been a Kittle or a Kelsey type of player. He's catching 8 or 10 balls a game in key moments. He doesn't drop balls. He's very efficient. It looks like Allen is starting to trust him just as much as Mahomes would trust Kelsey. Is there a thought that maybe Denver is looking at Buffalo with Mahomes and Allen, Kelsey and Kincaid, kind of like they're the same guys?
Well, they did a great job against Travis Kelce the last time they faced him. I mean, they did a phenomenal job against him. And you know that that's where the ball is going to consistently go. The difference, I would say, is you have Stefon Diggs, who I think Patrick Mahomes wishes he had a receiver like that right now. I mean, Diggs is one of the best in the game right now, and what we've seen throughout the course of this season, that just doesn't exist within the Chiefs offense. So you do have to be aware of Diggs, and obviously we know how good of a corner Patrick Surtain is to kind of line up against him. That's one of my favorite matchups of this weekend, getting a chance to see those two go at it a little bit. But yeah, going after Dalton Kincaid and making sure that, I mean, he's really become Josh Allen's number 2 target, right? After Diggs. And this team has done decent against tight ends. And I just really love, actually, personally, the way Kincaid has played of late. He was one of the rookies that I wanted to see break out, and thought he was in a very good spot to find success playing with a guy like Josh Allen. It's been fun to watch the last couple of weeks, the way he has played, been able to find spots, specifically going vertical and throughout the middle portion of that field. But yeah, I think they have their hands full with those two guys, and obviously there's some other aspects of this offense they need to be aware of. But the one on the outside with Diggs and Surtain, I'm excited about. But inside, obviously, they need to be able to contain Kincaid.
James, I know one of the other reasons that Coach Payton has been pounding the football out on the ground is because pass protection has been suspect up front. Only 19 pass attempts for Russell Wilson last game out against the Chiefs, and from what I'm reading, it's basically 10 quarterback pressures and 4 sacks in 19 dropbacks. That's an issue, especially when you got to go on the road against the team that's 3rd in the league in sacks here in Buffalo.
Yeah, I was having this conversation with Brian Baldinger just the other day, actually, just how difficult it's going to be for this offensive line, specifically because this game is at night and in Buffalo. You're right. Like the extra jump that could be there. It's going to be difficult for offensive linemen to hear, difficult for offensive linemen to handle a defensive line like Buffalo has. And it does seem like they're kind of coming back a little bit. He's been battling something, and everybody's waiting for Vaughn to kind of have that breakout sense and had those Vaughn Miller plays we're used to as he's coming back from, his injury. I do think he's the type of player this offensive line really struggles with. Mike McGlinchey, I mean, I did their game against the Jets, and there were guys on the Jets team going like, is he hurt? Like, is there something? I'm curious, is there something wrong with Mike McGlinchey? Because that was how he was playing, just really stiff, struggling with guys that could really bend around the edge. And we know Vaughn's maybe the greatest of all time of getting low and getting around the corner in that sense. Protecting Russell Wilson's been an issue. But also, I'll say this, Russ has held on to the football quite a bit. We all know that's been his MO his whole career, right? And holding on to the football and doing things like that. And now he's holding on to the football still and not escaping as well as he used to in seasons past back in Seattle when he maybe was a little bit more spry. So I think those two things combined have made things pretty difficult on the way that they've played up front. They got, if you remember, Mike McGlinchey and Ben Powers in free agency right at the beginning of free agency because they wanted run graders. And then they weren't running the football consistently at the start of the season. They weren't running it in the second halves of games. And now last week, or I keep saying last week, they had a bye 2 weeks ago, they did run it, and that's what this offensive line's built to do. Their pass protection is not, to be honest, their strength.
And as you get closer and closer to this game, we kind of look at the last couple of weeks for the Broncos before the bye, of course, and then with the Buffalo Bills, the injuries up front for Buffalo and the fact that Linval Joseph came in as a brand new player on the team off the street and got significant snaps last week in the interior line, defensive line. It looks like an obvious contest between the run game and the desire for the Broncos to run the football and a battered defensive line for the Bills. Who's going to win that? And can the Bills force the Broncos to throw the football? I mean, that seems where the crux of that side of the football is going to come down to.
I totally agree, and I kind of mentioned it a little bit there, but that's been one of the issues when I talk to people inside the Broncos building is we've gotten away from the run at times. Even in close games, they've gotten away from the run, and I think that was 2 weeks ago something that you saw them in a close game continuously stick with, and I think that was part of their model. They've been better situationally. I think that has helped because they have a tendency with penalties. You mentioned that offensive line, whether it's a hold or a false start, and they put themselves behind the chains. And that's obviously what Buffalo is going to want, right? Because then you're get yourself in these situations where it's 3rd and long, it's not 3rd and short, and you can't run effectively on 1st and 2nd down sometimes when you do that to yourself. And that's probably what Buffalo is obviously hoping for. But when they have the ability to not hurt themselves and Russ can protect the football, they don't, hurt themselves on early downs, then they have the ability to stick with the run. And I think that's going to be what the entire game plan is really going to be. And I think you mentioned it, 19 passes for Russell Wilson in the last game, but also he throws 3 touchdown passes. And to me, the one that he threw to Cortland Sutton in the back corner of the end zone, where he scrambles up through the line of scrimmage and throws it before I was like, this is the first time I've seen like a real Seattle Russell Wilson play here over these almost season and a half with the Denver Broncos. That was kind of, one of those moments where I was like, this is what I saw in Seattle for a decade. And it's kind of because they're trying to limit putting all of that on him in a sense. And if they can run it and not hurt themselves, that's going to be the game plan.
James, got a last one for you real quick. Special teams for the Broncos has been impressive. Steve always jokes that the teams that are usually best on special teams are the ones that get the most practice because they're getting scored on so much. And maybe part of that 70-point game is a reason for it, but Marvin Mims has been a revelation. I mean, they're leading the league in kick return average and punt return average, and they're top 3 on cover units as well. What is it about Marvin Mims that has helped make him so successful this season as a returner?
He's been explosive. I mean, he's been beyond explosive, and it's not just a returner. I mean, his number, I think, his phone number was written down in front of Sean Payton's desk while he was talking to the media on Monday, because he's like, I got to find a way to get Marvin Mims the football in the offense as well. So look for him catching explosive plays in the receiving game. He's been their most explosive receiver in a very, very limited capacity, but he's been explosive in the kick game, and Will Lutz has been phenomenal since the beginning of the season. I think he had a miss early that affected him, maybe Kareem, which cost him the game week 1, and then he's been fantastic. The special teams is the other portion that they were talking about really massively overhauling. That was one of the biggest things Sean Payton wanted to change this past offseason. He thought the special teams were atrocious in Denver, and they've done a really good job of it. And I think he brought in the right people, the right guys that know special teams on that staff to help him with it, and they've been really, really good. So that goes with kind of the situational change that has happened of late with the Broncos.
James, thanks for coming on, man. We appreciate you.
Yeah, you guys take care. Good seeing you.